Hello everyone, and welcome to Calculating the Annual Percentage Rates of ETFs. I'm your host, Dr. B. Today's ETF is VXUS, the Vanguard Total International Stock ETF. This stock has been around, or ETF has been around for a long time. However, it has not done well compared to other ETFs that I profiled since April. However, if you have a certified financial planner, then I bet you have international in your portfolio. I do. I own the Vanguard Mutual Fund. This is the ETF version. So let's take a look at the numbers. So if you invested $10,000 10 years ago, your $10,000 today would be worth only $15,712. Year to date, the ETF is up 5%. What are money markets doing now? They are now getting less than 5%. To date, they're getting around between 4 and 4.5%. Interest rates were just lowered a quarter of a point last week by the Fed. Okay. Let's take a look. The annual yield is 2.97%. The only expense ratio is 0.08%. So it does pay a yield, but don't forget, you don't want to necessarily buy something based upon a high yield. Let's look at the VXUS exposure. The number one sector is financial services at 21.5%, followed by industrials at 15.15%, and then technology at 13.37%. Normally, technology is one of the highest exposures in all the sectors. At the end here, at the bottom, we have real estate and utilities at 3%. There are 8,542 holdings in the Vanguard International ETF. 9% of these assets are in the top 10. Let's take a look at what are these assets that are in the top 10. Here are the holdings that are in the top 10 of VXUS. The number one holding is Taiwan Semiconductor, followed by Nova Nordisk, and then Tencent. And if you look at the bottom, number 8, 9, and 10, those are names that most of you probably heard of. AstraZeneca, Toyota Motor Corporation, and then Shell PLC. If you take a look in the upper right, you'll see CUR. That stands for currency. So it makes sense that Taiwan Semiconductor is TWD, the Taiwan dollar. But do you know all of these currencies by the three letters here? DKK, that's a Danish krone. HKD is a Hong Kong dollar. Now, EUR, that's a euro that's been around, I think, about 30 years now. We've had the euro around since the 1990s, I believe. Unless you're into currencies, you may not have known CHF is the Swiss franc. GBP is the sterling or the British sterling. And then if you ever look up information on Yahoo Finance, at the top you'll see the United States dollar versus Japanese yen, that's JPY. Let's calculate the 10-year result for VXUS. Okay, it's worth $15,712 from the initial $10,000 investment. So let's go through the steps. Your initial step is you're going to take your $10,000 that you invested 10 years ago and you multiply by 1 plus R over 4 raised to the power of 40. Now, where does the 4 come in? This ETF is compounded quarterly. So if it's a 10-year investment, 4 times 10 is 40. Therefore, there are 40 quarters. That is your exponent, equal to $15,712. Step number 2. You're going to divide both sides by 10,000. And then on the right, you get a decimal of 1.5712. Step number 3, you're going to take the natural log of both sides, and you can find the natural log on your TI-30 calculator or any other calculator. That button is also located on your cell phone. It's not a button, but you can see it. You just have to know how to use it. So you take natural log on both sides, and then what's going to happen is your 40 as an exponent now becomes a multiplier. That's the function of the natural log. And then you take the natural log of 1.5712, and you get a decimal of 0.4514. And then if you divide both sides by 40, you get a much smaller decimal of 0.011296. Step number 6 is, well, how do you get rid of the natural log? You have to E it, or take the natural exponent on both sides. Natural exponent and natural log, they will cancel each other out. Once again, going back to your time in middle school or high school, if you take a number raised to a power of 0, and I would teach this to students who are in high school SAT, take a number raised to the power of 0, you get 1. So if you take a number that's a little bit more than 0, then your answer will be, or your next number would be a little bit more than 1. So in step number 7, you'll see E and natural log cancel each other out. So you get 1 plus r over 4 equal to 1.01136. Then we subtract both sides by 1, and then the 1 goes away, and you get a decimal on the right of 0.01136. Step number 9, you multiply both sides by 4, and you get a decimal of 0.04544. And then your final step, change a decimal to a percentage. You move the decimal 2 places to the right, or multiply by 100, and then you get an interest rate of 4.544%. Now, that might be a low interest rate, but that is what bonds have been getting, or actually bonds have not been doing that well. Might be doing maybe around 4%. Money markets also, they've gotten up to about 4%, even up to 5% this past year. But now, since the Fed has lowered interest rates 3 times since September, now money market rates are around 4%. So a lot of people will invest in the foreign market instead of buying CDDs or bonds or money markets. But money markets and CDDs are safer. But always remember this, no matter what you invest in, past performance does not equal future results. Hope everyone has a happy holidays. Have a wonderful 2025. And then come back in January and I'll bring you another version of calculating the annual percentage rates of ETFs.